Good morning, I'm Father Sean Pine with Mercy Minutes. In this Jubilee Year of Mercy, our Holy Father has chosen to canonize Blessed Teresa of Calcutta. This will be done on September the 4th in 2016, which would be a Jubilee for the workers of mercy. So Mother Teresa is being presented to us as an icon of mercy in this Jubilee of Mercy. Mother Teresa was born in August the 26th in Skopje in Macedonia, and was a very devout young girl. She ended up becoming a Sister of Loreto. She went to Rathfarnham in near Dublin and Ireland in 1928. She was 18 years old at the time, and then she was sent to Calcutta, where she taught in the Bengali section, the language of Bengali, the young girls. And it was when she was about 36 years old that she received a call, which she called it a call within a call, where our Blessed Lord appeared to her. She had heard voices to leave the Sister Loreto and to start a community called the Missions of Charity. And of course, she's known throughout the world as a great work of mercy. So much so in 1979, she won the Nobel Peace Prize award for her works of mercy and works of peace. So the Holy Father canonizing her at this particular time is very significant. Someone who visited our own Diocese of Lafayette, and we have the Missions of Charity here in Lafayette as well in Baton Rouge. But we can look to Mother Teresa about how to be men and women of mercy and show the face of the Father during this Jubilee.
Tell the people I love them. Tell the people I care. When they feel far away from me, tell the people I'm there.
Hello and welcome to Tell the People, a program about our Catholic faith with news and information in and around the Catholic Diocese of Lafayette. I'm Trista Littell, and in today's show, I'll have an interview with Olivetan Benedictine Monk, Father James Liprie, from the Mother Redeemer Monastery near Opelousas. In this segment, What It Means to Be Catholic, Father Clinton Sensat continues our Year of Mercy series, and his talks are about indulgences. And Father Bryce, Sibley, and Paul George will be here to talk about Cajun Catholic students at UL as they fill in for the vacationing Bishop Douglas Deshotel. But first, Catholic news on this July 10th weekend. Summertime is here, and we're asking you to mark your calendars and plan now to have your children attend Cajun Camp 2016. Cajun Camp is for children ages 5 to 13. They may be deaf, deaf-blind, hard of hearing, or hearing who want to learn sign language. We accept only 50 campers, so register early to ensure your child's spot. At Cajun Camp, the children will learn sign language, arts and crafts, health and nutrition aerobics, outdoor, indoor sports, games, drama, dance, field trips, swimming, and a Parents' Day presentation. The last Cajun Camp will be held from July 11th through the 15th. Cajun Camp will be held at the Deaf Action Center located in Village de Lac off of the Breaux Bridge Highway at 1404 Carmel Drive from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. daily. The cost is $75 per week. The deadline for registration and payment is now, so call 232-3463 for information. The Diocese Office of Justice and Peace, along with the diaconate aspirants for the permanent diaconate, is organizing the collection of school supplies for children whose parents are incarcerated. Your generosity will provide the means to accomplish our mission to be sensitive and generous to those in most need, especially the children who struggle with other special circumstances. What can you do? Purchase items needed for elementary and junior high students and drop off at the Office of Justice and Peace at the Catholic Diocese of Lafayette, 1408 Carmel Drive in Lafayette. The drop-off deadline is July 17th. For more information, please call 261-5545. The Museum of the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist at 914 St. John Street in Lafayette will host an art exhibit featuring the works of Jean Medol, a 19th century French artist, from July 1st through October 31st. Jean Medol was a calligrapher, a miniaturist, and a writer classified among the best religious painters in the mid-19th century. Between 1836 and 1863, his art was popular. The exhibit presents reproductions of 10 original religious paintings, several signed and dated 1843 from an unfinished album by Jean Medol, which was discovered only recently. 2016 is the premiere viewing of these paintings. The reproductions are available in a limited edition of 100 framed 11-inch by 20-inch with matte and non-glare glass in the original size of the paintings. The reproductions are also available in a limited edition of 250 framed 8 by 10-inch with non-glare glass in a reduced size of the original paintings. For more information, call 662-6688 for viewing and availability. This is a great summertime event to tour the St. John Cathedral Museum. Last year's first ever Fête de Déteste Eucharistic boat procession in honor of the arrival of the Acadians and the 250th anniversary of the St. Martin de Tours Catholic Church in St. Martinville was a great success. It has been decided the Eucharistic boat procession will be an annual event. The next Fête de Déteste Eucharistic boat procession is coming up. Please spread the word. Schedule your vacation day for Monday, August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption, and bring your family. Bishop Douglas Deshotel will begin the day with Mass at 8 a.m. at St. Leo the Great in Leonville. Then a Eucharistic boat procession travels down Bayou Teche. The procession will make several prayerful stops for the Rosary and Benediction in Orneville, Cecilia, Brobridge, Parks, and it arrives at St. Martinville at 5 p.m., ending in St. Martinville at Our Lady of Sorrows, Mate Dolorosa Chapel for Vespers and Benediction. And that's Catholic news for this week. Coming up next, I'll have an interview with Olivetan Benedictine Monk, Father James Liprie, from the Mother Redeemer Monastery near Opelousas. Did you know here in Acadiana we have a Benedictine monastery? Well, we do. It's near Opelousas. And today, for our Inside the Diocese segment, we have Benedictine monk, Father James Liprie, to tell us all about it. Welcome, Father James.
Thank you, Tristan.
Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm originally from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and went to Catholic school all my life. My parents made sure that 4 children went to the Catholic school, and I'm grateful for that. And I guess my vocation really came from seeking the Lord, which is really what a Benedictine vocation is all about. And at the time I was at McNeese University, and the former Bishop Jacobs, retired Bishop Jacobs, was the chaplain. And he worked with me, and I would go to prayer meetings, and he sent me away to West Virginia to help the poor. And I just started getting more interested in prayer and visiting religious communities, and even the Abbey in Covington, the Benedictines. And I was so moved by the prayerfulness and the solitude there that it stuck with me. It really did stay in my soul. And I just kept pursuing, and people would say, "You need to be a priest." I said, "No, I'm not going to be a priest. You have a vocation." "I don't think so. I'm going to college. I'll finish college." But somehow the Lord overtook my life, and he says, "Join, go, give your life to him. Give your life to the Lord." And that's what I did. I joined the monastery. In fact, I even went to Italy for about 4 months, one of our abbeys in Florence, San Miniato. And that was an experience. And so I left there. I was young, about 24 years of age, a little homesick, never been out of the country. But coming back to college, I could sense in my soul something was missing. I was like a fish out of water. And I kept pursuing the religious vocation. I kept wanting to go to a monastery. And so I got on the bus and traveled to Atlanta, to the Cistercians for 6 weeks, thinking that was it, but it wasn't. And so finally, I joined the monastery in Louisiana and was very happy, and I'm still with the Benedictines, and it's taken me to New Mexico, Arizona, and now in Opelousas area.
What an interesting journey. Well, why specifically did you choose the Benedictines?
Well, like I said earlier, I just had that great desire for prayer, and I could feel the presence, or experience the presence of Jesus in my soul. And the more that I prayed, I felt as though the Holy Spirit was just drawing me to get closer and closer to Him. And at the same time, I was getting closer to family and people in a gentle way, but I could sense the presence of Jesus. And so I just couldn't stop seeking the Lord. And of course, the Benedictine vocation is all about seeking God, you know. So it fit together very well, you know.
Sure.
And by the way, I just want to let you know that I'm also a cousin to Father Rousseau at Our Lady of Fatima. Distant cousin. But anyway, we gather together occasionally and share our vocation, life, and how we live together in God's kingdom.
Well, it's so good to hear that your roots ran deep on both sides of the family in serving the Lord. Well, who are the Olivetan Benedictines?
The Olivetan Benedictines are a branch of the Benedictines. There are like 22 different branches of Benedictines. And the Olivetans, our mother house is outside of Siena, Italy. It's the Abbey of Monte Oliveto. And it goes back about 1319, and our founder was a lawyer, and he left everything with 2 companions into his estate, or the family's estate, and they lived really like hermits for 3 years. And then the local bishop called them to take a rule, and they chose the rule of Saint Benedict. Also, he was very devoted to Our Lady, and that's the reason we wear the white habit. And Our Lady guided him to found this order under her patronage. And that's why our mother house is Santa Maria of Montoliveto. And so our founder is from Italy. In fact, I go there every year for meetings. In fact, I'm leaving at the end of September for a general chapter. But the Olivetan Benedictines are really of a family spirit, smaller communities, but living the family life, monastic life.
Well, can you give us a little bit of a history of the Mother Redeemer Monastery?
Yes, ma'am. Mother of the Redeemer Monastery was founded in 1990, and it was under Archbishop Flynn. And in fact, we lived at the Cursillo Center for about 2.5, 3 years until we found property, and someone donated 20 acres in the Plaisance area near Prairie Ronde. And we've been doing very well ever since. We have 6 members now with some prospective vocations, and we have retreats. As you know, you've been out there.
Sure have. It was wonderful to be out there and to be able to pray night prayer with you all and get direction. It was wonderful.
Yes. In fact, some of the clergy come out. In fact, there's a priest from the Diocese of Baton Rouge now. So occasionally we get religious sisters, brothers, and priests, but mainly the lay people come out, and the Teresians, some teachers from the local area. And so we try to accommodate them, as St. Benedict says, let all guests be received as Christ. So we try to do our best to attend to the guest in our lives.
Well, if someone wants to make a retreat out there or visit the monastery, what do they do? How would they go about it?
Well, they could call the monastery or look on our website, motheroftheredeemer.org, or call the monastery at 543-2237. and we'll try to set them up for a retreat or a day of reflection. Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Okay.
It's just so great to have a place like that in our midst to be able to go and enrich our faith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up next in this segment, What It Means to Be Catholic, Father Clinton Sensat is here for our Year of Mercy series. His talks are about indulgences.
My brothers and sisters, good morning. My name is Father Clinton Sensat, and I am the pastor of St. Thomas More Catholic Church in Eunice and the chaplain of LSUE. And I'm happy to join you this morning as we continue to lay our foundation for an understanding of indulgences. And last week we talked about the reality of sin because we would never need an indulgence from God if we never sinned. And so today, the second thing that I want to talk about when we talk about sin is about the consequences of sin. The consequences of sin. Perhaps last week, and maybe even more today, you can hear that my voice is a little rough. I've been under the weather for a while. And I wanted to think about the reality that I get sick. And sickness has bodily consequences for me, right? It means that my body doesn't work as well as it should. And we talk about sickness in the body, and then we sometimes talk about sickness in the mind. We talk about psychological sickness, to where my emotions are maybe not functioning the way that they should, my brain is not functioning the way that it should, my ability to relate to others is not functioning the way that it should. And we also have spiritual sickness, which is the sickness of sin, that whenever I choose to turn my back on God, my mind and my will start to operate in a way that they should not. They get sick. I start to think crazy things. I lose my ability to choose what is right. I get weaker and weaker in my will, and I begin to desire more and more things that are against the law of God. That just like sickness of the body and sickness of the mind, sickness of the soul has real effects and real consequences on us. It twists us and changes us and breaks our ability to see clearly what God wants and to choose freely that love that God calls us to. And so sin has consequences in us, but it doesn't only have consequences in us. I want you to think again about being sick. If I'm sick with a virus or if I'm sick with some kind of bacteria and I sneeze on you, then you're likely to get sick as well. That there's some reality of contagion there. And so whenever people are sick, especially whenever people are really sick, we try to avoid them because we don't want to catch what they have. So also when I have psychological illness, it doesn't just affect me, it affects the people around me. If I can't choose to freely understand people, if I don't have the emotional capacity to be sympathetic, if I don't have the freedom to think rightly about reality, it's going to affect all the people around me. It's going to hurt people. And so also sin, that if I break my connection with God, if I choose falsity over truth and I choose selfishness over good, that's going to have an effect not just on me, but on the church, on the world, on reality around me. Sin has consequences both within me and upon those around me. And we need to recognize this again, that our sins are not just, oh, you do what you want to do and I'll do what I want to do, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, it's okay. Sin hurts people. Even when it's not directed against people, it breaks the human community that we should have in the church, and it breaks our relationship with God that should be bringing grace and love into the world. And so one of the things that I like to think about is that sin is not just like sickness, sin is like pollution. 100 years ago, we didn't really understand pollution. We could dump all kinds of waste and chemicals and stuff into the water, and we were getting rid of it. We thought we weren't hurting anybody. We didn't see the immediate effects of it. But then we began to realize that this sort of stuff enters into the plants, it enters into the insects, it enters into the world around us, and that for decades we had been secretly hurting our environment in a way that would eventually hurt us, and at first it wasn't apparent to us. The same is true of sin, that when I sin, I pollute the world around me. And it may not be immediately apparent to me, but I begin to break down bonds. I begin to twist people away from the truth. I begin to make excuses for them to sin. I begin to give a bad example. I begin to break and block grace. And exactly because the realm of God, the realm of the supernatural, the highest realm of our mind, the realm of intellect and will, is the part of us that's most hidden from our senses and from our emotions. It's the part of us where we most think we can do all kinds of bad things and suffer no consequences. But there are consequences to sin. Because God's will is not just God's whim. God's will is what sets reality in order. It's God's will that made the angels and the animals and the electrons and all good things. And my brothers and sisters, when we break God's will, we're breaking the foundation of reality. We're breaking nature itself. We're breaking the groundwork for what it means to be human. And there are always consequences for that. It's not just that God is peeved in heaven. God has created the world to follow his will. The world exists because of the will of God. And when we violate the moral law of God, it's worse than violating the laws of nature, because we violate it at a deeper level, just as much as your soul is greater than an electron. And so, my brothers and sisters, sin has consequences. We hear in the scriptures that sin makes people blind, that sin leads to death, that sin is a kind of sickness, that sin is a kind of slavery, that sin is a kind of bondage, that sin brings about the kingdom of Satan. We hear from our great saints like St. Augustine that God is the life of the soul, just as the soul is the life of the body, and that if we break away from God in our soul will die. It won't disappear, it won't cease to exist, but it will cease to think and to love the way that it should. We hear St. Anselm say in an image that God is like a great king, and that when we rebel against God and lead others into rebellion, we fracture his kingdom and offend him deeply. My brothers and sisters, sin is not just something that we do like a belch that we can then say, "Excuse me," to God. Sin is a tragedy. Sin is a tragedy that wreaks havoc upon ourselves and upon our environment. Sin has consequences. And when we turn from sin, we need to mop up the consequences as well. God bless you all.
Thank you, Father Sensat. Coming up next, Father Bryce Sibley and Paul George will be here to talk about Cajun Catholic students at ULL as they fill in for the vacationing Bishop Douglas Deshotel.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Tell the People. My name is Father Bryce Sibley, pastor and chaplain of Our Lady of Wisdom Church and Catholic Student Center on the campus of UL. I am honored to be taking Bishop Deshotel's place this week and over the course of the next several weeks to talk to you about what I do, what we do at UL, and that is Catholic campus ministry. And to make our time together a little bit more entertaining, I brought along a special guest for this journey, Mr. Paul George.
Yeah, very special guest.
Paul is a campus minister and has been for a number of years over at UL. You're world-renowned, Paul. You travel all over, do youth ministry, and you've been working in campus ministry here for the past several years. It's been great having you.
Yeah, I love being on campus. It's awesome. Of course, working with you and our staff there.
That's probably the biggest blessing.
You know, what's really unique about UL is you travel around the country, and I know as you do as well. People start to recognize University of Louisiana Lafayette and the campus ministry that's happening, and they'll ask me about it. I could be anywhere around the country, and they're talking about Raging Cajun Catholics.
And hopefully you say nice things.
Well, it's good things. I mean, because
yeah.
I think what's happening on campus is unique, it's needed, but the ministry's starting to grow, and people are starting to recognize that it's important to have campus ministry.
Well, Paul, you mentioned just now how important it is to have campus ministry. And so from your own experience or from our own experience, why would you say, and this is what we want to focus on today, why is Catholic campus ministry important today, now more than ever? What would you say?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we could talk about that you and I have kind of researched and talked about many times, and the reason that campus ministry is so important. But one of the latest statistics that's out there is that the research shows us that from the time a high school kid graduates high school at age 18, between 18 and 23 years old, that gap of time, research studies are showing that 70 to 80% of young people are leaving the church during that period of time. And that's the college age slot right there, so 18 to 23. A huge number, the majority of those students are leaving the church during that period of time.
So by the time they leave college, they're no longer Catholic.
They're no longer Catholic, no longer Christian, no longer practicing their faith. And so if we don't step into that gap and begin to do something to reach that generation of young people, that 18 to 23, we're looking at, if you fast forward down the road, a generation of Catholics that are no longer Catholic.
And of course, that's the thing, as from my experience, you can't force those young people to come to the Catholic Church. You can't force them while they're at a university to come and get involved. And so one of the big things about Catholic Campus Ministry today, realizing that statistic and the fact that we want to be able to have more young people maintain their faith, grow in their faith, we not only provide things for them at the Student Center, but we're also willing to go out on campus and evangelize.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like a student graduates from high school at 18 and they maybe even consciously say, I mean, some certainly might, but the majority don't consciously say, I'm leaving the church. What happens is there's so many distractions in the world. They land on a college campus or in a job outside of high school, and they just end up, over the course of years, finding that they've drifted away. And what we've really found is if you provide a relevant, strong ministry with good outreach and evangelization, students will begin to come back to the church.
And what they're searching for is not just ministry. I'm sure if you ask a lot of them what the word ministry even means, they don't even know.
Right.
You're creating a community.
Yeah.
You're creating a safe space where they can go, where they can be formed, where they can pray, where they can have a great time. But we're not just about saying, hey, let's have a nice time here. We want you to go out to evangelize, to spread the faith. And we really try our best to take the students and form them through our own evangelical efforts so they can go make disciples of other people.
Yeah, I mean, friendships are really important for young people and really for all people. We find that where we build our friendships is where we build the community and who we become like. So what you find is those who build friendship of faith, they end up helping each other along in their faith, right? But if you don't have those friendships, you kind of drift away.
And so what happens is we form, we have the friendships built, and then the goal or the hope is the seeds that we've planted in campus ministry while in college will grow to fruition later on.
Yeah, you know, another interesting statistic that we've looked at is that if someone within that age group of 18 to 23 surrounds themselves with a group of people who are non-Christian or of some other influence type group, they will strongly navigate to that group long term into adulthood. Maybe it's atheism, maybe it's some other type of group. But if they navigate during that time to friendships of faith, their adult faith will continue past college.
And that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Once they're finished there in college, we want them to go back to their parish. We want them to go back in their community and be leaders.
Absolutely.
And spread the faith. And so the real vision for Catholic Campus Ministry isn't just about, hey, we want to keep you from sinning while you're in college. We want you to keep going to Mass. We want to be able to plant the roots deep in the soil so that when you leave, you still maintain your faith. It's still integral. And I think over the time that we've been there, we've seen that. So many young people go on to get married, go on and searching vocations to the priesthood or religious life, and really develop and grow with the faith. And they're very thankful about what they received through the Raging Cajun Catholics.
Yeah, many people in the diocese, priests or other parishioners will say, oh, y'all doing so great. Y'all are reaching all these kids. Y'all are keeping them. It's like, no, that's not what we're doing. Our end goal is to prepare future parishioners. They're going to plug back into other churches in the diocese and other communities and become strong parishioners in their own parish when they graduate.
Yeah, and if you don't get them in the beginning, if you don't get them in college, the chances of that happening really begin to go down. So that's about all the time we have for today on this episode of Tell the People. Very happy to have Paul George here. We're going to be back all through the month of July, so if you tune in over the course of the next several weeks, you'll be able to see our bright, shining faces taking the place of Bishop Doug Deshotel, who is out for the month of July. So hope everybody has a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week. And please pray for Catholic Campus Ministry and the Raging Cajun Catholics.
Thank you, Father Bryce and Paul George. We hope you have enjoyed our program because it is produced for you. So please join us next week on this station as we tell the people about the Diocese of Lafayette and the good news of our Catholic faith.